Instead, Lieu exposes something that left the entire room frozen. It happened in seconds, but the shockwave is still being felt. Because in the middle of a routine hearing, one that was supposed to be boring, predictable, controlled, Lieu dropped a question so direct, so cutting, that even Pam Bondi didn't seem prepared for it. And what made it hit even harder was the timing. For months, whispers had circulated online about hidden files, sealed documents, and a list that some people believe could shake the foundations of power. Then suddenly, Lieu said the four words no one expected. "Where is that list?" The room shifted. The air thickened. You could almost feel the tension crawl across the desks.
Thank you, Chairman Aguilar. Donald Trump, when he campaigned, promised on day one he would end inflation and lower costs. Donald Trump lied to the American people because we now know that inflation has continued to increase under his policies and that of Republicans. The most recent inflation report shows that inflation increased to 2.7% above expectations, and core CPI increased to 2.9%. We call on Trump and Republicans to focus on lowering costs instead of things like the big ugly bill that are kicking millions of people off health care. I've also noticed that there's been an uptick in activity around the Epstein files recently. I just want to remind the American people that in February of this year, Attorney General Pam Bondi acknowledged the existence of Jeffrey Epstein's client list. In fact, she said that Jeffrey Epstein's client list is, quote, sitting on my desk right now. Where is that client list? What is Attorney General Pam Bondi hiding? She needs to release the Epstein files as soon as possible. I talked about the Epstein files under the Biden administration. I'm talking about it under the Trump administration. This is a case of the powerful protecting the powerful. We need to have those files released. I also note that the Epstein files that have already been released show that Trump is all over the files. He's in multiple pictures with Jeffrey Epstein. There's multiple videos of Trump with Jeffrey Epstein. There are plane logs of Trump on Epstein's plane. There are statements by Trump about Epstein. There are court pleadings of alleged victims of Epstein naming Trump. So we need to have these Epstein files released. I also want to talk a little bit about Ukraine. The only way we get Vladimir Putin to the negotiating table is to defeat Russian troops on the battlefield. I support President Trump's decision to send Patriot missiles to Ukraine. I support President Trump's decision to say that he's going to backfill Europe's military equipment when Europe sends military equipment to Ukraine. And that is how we're going to get Putin to the negotiating table, by letting Putin know that he cannot win this war. And with that, I yield back.
Because this wasn't a political stunt. It wasn't performance. It was a demand. And it was aimed straight at someone who previously acknowledged, publicly, that she had the documents in question sitting right in her office. Not rumored. Not alleged. Not hypothetical. She said it herself months earlier. And the moment Lieu reminded everyone of that statement, the hearing stopped being about policy. It became a confrontation over credibility, power, and transparency. Lieu began by highlighting what everyone already sensed: the frustration growing across the country about rising prices, rising pressure, and rising suspicion. But then he pivoted, hard, into something deeper, something officials don't like talking about. He reminded the public that earlier this year, Pam Bondi acknowledged the existence of a certain high-profile list connected to one of the most disturbing cases in recent memory. A list that she said was sitting on my desk right now. No hesitation, no caveats, no conditions. Those were her words. And ever since, people have been asking the same question Lieu asked. If the list truly exists, where is it? That question hit like a thunderbolt, not because of the politics surrounding it, but because of what that list represents. According to court filings, public documents, and long-running investigations, the case at the center of this controversy wasn't just about one man. It was about a network, alleged by victims and noted in multiple reports, of wealthy figures, corporate insiders, political power players, and cultural elites who moved around him, benefiting from his connections. Even though many of the claims remain unverified or disputed, the demand for transparency has only grown. People want answers. People want names. People want accountability. And when an attorney general says the files are sitting on her desk, Yet months pass with nothing released. It raises questions that don't go away quietly. Because secrecy, especially in high-profile cases, doesn't calm a situation. It escalates it. And Lieu made sure everyone watching understood exactly what was at stake. He emphasized that the search for truth isn't about targeting a political opponent or fueling conspiracy theories. It's about ensuring the most basic principle of justice. If someone was involved in wrongdoing, anyone, they should face consequences, not protection. What made that moment even more intense was the fact that there have already been public releases of related documents over the years, photos, logs, filings, and statements that have circulated across news outlets, court records, and investigative reports. But those releases have been incomplete, fragmented, heavily redacted, and in some cases, so obscured that the first 50 pages look like a black wall of ink. And when information comes out in fragments like that, speculation fills the gaps. Lieu knew this. He didn't need to exaggerate. He didn't need to dramatize. All he had to do was ask a single question: what is being withheld, and why? Because if those files contain nothing significant, releasing them would end the speculation instantly. If they contain sensitive names, then transparency becomes even more important. And if they contain names of powerful individuals, which many online rumors have suggested, though none of those claims are confirmed, that makes the silence look even worse. That Bondi's dilemma is that she can't have it both ways. She can't publicly acknowledge the list exists, insist it's in her possession, and then go completely silent. That inconsistency has become the center of the controversy. Lieu didn't accuse her of hiding anything. He didn't claim the list contained specific names. He didn't assert guilt. All he did was expose the contradiction. You said you have it. So where is it? Observers watching the hearing noticed something else too. Liu's tone wasn't angry. It wasn't theatrical. It was controlled, calm, and surgical. That's why it landed so hard. He wasn't chasing headlines. He was doing oversight. Real oversight. The kind that makes powerful people uncomfortable. While others turn hearings into chaos for camera clips, Lieu asked about something that actually matters. Because the broader question behind his words is one the public has been asking for years. Why does it seem like people with money, connections, and influence are treated differently from everyone else? Why do investigations involving wealthy networks take so long, get so complicated, and end in so much secrecy? Why do victims often plead for information while officials remain silent? When Lieu pressed Bondi about the existence and status of those files, he was reflecting the frustration of millions of people who watched the story unfold from the outside. People who saw partial releases, mysterious delays, conflicting statements, and unanswered questions. And for many of them, this moment wasn't about politics. It was about whether justice can still operate without fear or favor. After raising the issue, Lieu transitioned seamlessly into foreign policy, signaling that he wasn't there to grandstand or obsess over one issue. He talked about international stability, military support, and geopolitical stakes, demonstrating something the public rarely sees anymore: the ability to multitask governance and oversight at the same time. And that transition made his earlier remarks even more powerful because it proved he wasn't obsessed with headlines. He was focused on what matters, but the echo of his question lingered long after he moved on. Commentators picked up on it. Viewers replayed it. Clips circulated online. Because that one question, where is that list, captured the national mood. Tired of secrecy, tired of double standards, tired of waiting for answers that never seem to come. The broader story behind this moment is one of unfinished justice. The central figure in the case has long been gone, but the legal trails, connections, and allegations didn't disappear with him. As more victims have come forward over the years with statements, filings, and testimony, the demand for transparency has only intensified. And every time a public official suggests the files exist, then pauses, delays, or deflects, that demand grows louder. Some analysts argue the silence is due to national security concerns, diplomatic considerations, or ongoing legal processes. Others believe it may involve protecting the integrity of investigations. And many online speculate, again, without confirmed evidence, that the hesitation is due to the involvement of extremely influential individuals. What's clear is that the longer these files remain hidden, the more suspicion grows, regardless of the actual reason that Liu's intervention forced the issue back into the public light. It reminded people that justice isn't supposed to be selective. It isn't supposed to be convenient. It isn't supposed to bend around the rich. By confronting Bondi directly, he exposed the contradiction between public promises of transparency and the reality of silence. And in a political era full of noise, distractions, and performative outrage, that kind of clarity is rare. Liu's question was the kind of moment people remember not because it was loud, but because it cut straight to the truth. It asked the question millions have whispered for years, but rarely hear spoken out loud in a congressional hearing. The significance of this moment doesn't come from drama. It comes from what it represents. A government official confronting another official about accountability. A reminder that files don't vanish just because they're uncomfortable. A signal to the public that transparency still matters. And a warning that silence carries its own consequences. Because whether those files contain something explosive or something mundane, whether they confirm fears or debunk rumors, whether they reveal a network or show only isolated incidents, the secrecy itself is the problem. Answers in speculation. Silence fuels it. Liu's final words echoed with that urgency. The files need to be released. The public deserves clarity. And until that happens, the question will hang over every official who touches this case. No amount of deflection will make it disappear. No hearing will overshadow it. No change in administration will bury it. This isn't about conspiracy. It's about credibility. Because in any functioning democracy, justice cannot hide in a drawer. And if an official claims the truth is sitting on their desk, the public has every right to ask why they're not allowed to see it. If you believe these questions deserve answers, if you think transparency shouldn't depend on influence, and if you want more deep dive videos that cut through the noise and expose what others ignore, make sure you're subscribed, turn on notifications, and hit that like button so this truth reaches more people. The more light we shine, the less darkness can hide.